Alrighty. Now. So, hello to everyone watching. I'm Amelia Brady, a fashion researcher, curator in training, and very proud mentee turned ambassador of I Like Networking, an international creative initiative that is centered on fostering community and connectivity for women and non-binary people across the arts. I am thrilled to be joined today by the wonderfully talented Colin Horgan, whose innovative, also hello, there he is, whose innovative work I have had the pleasure of following and profiling for almost 8 years now, which is mental to think. I mean, the time has just seriously flown. I know. I mean, oh man, we'll get into all of that. But yes, he's an Irish designer, a celebrated Royal College of Art graduate. And I remember citing in one article that Colin's designs were this perfect fusion of technical prowess and textural ecstasy. And I so stand by those words to this day. I mean, even looking at your designs in the background, I mean, it's no wonder that on-off the London-based talent support program that has been devised to nurture emerging designers has so proudly endorsed your work. So listen, Colin, it's an absolute pleasure to sit down with you, albeit virtually, and it's just so lovely to chat face to face, because I think this is the first face-to-face interview we've ever done.
It definitely has. Like, I can't even believe, you know, when you came to my first show, like that is so long ago. And to be fair, you've supported me all the way through, and it's such a pleasure to be here today. Like, such an honor. Like,
oh, Jesus, for you and me both. Oh, thank you so much. Honestly, no, I mean, yeah, as we were talking about in the lead up to the interview, you know, when I got in touch with Colin in relation to having this chat, it just really got me reminiscing about my first encounter with your work. And as you say, that, you know, especially memorable kind of first experience for me was when Colin basically staged this fashion show in the heart of Dublin's Creative Quarter. And it was part of a schedule for this I don't know whether it's disbanded or just paused, but this like quasi fashion week in Dublin anyway, called the Dublin Fashion Festival. And I just still remember that sheer excitement when the press invite came through, because I mean, it was my first experience getting invited to a show firstly, and getting invited to a show as a member of the, you know, Irish fashion press, so to speak. And I mean, I was also 15 at the time, so I mean, it would be a big deal for me now, but I was, you know, especially hyped about it at the time. But it's funny because, you know, that memory, another thing that struck me about it was that Orla Diffley, who is, for anyone watching who doesn't know, this, I mean, mastermind when it comes to Irish design communications and event organizing, et cetera, and she was the person who liaised with me about the show, you know, was the person who was, you know, so proudly endorsing your work. And I mean, all these years on, she still does to this day from everything I've seen. So I suppose to start us off, because I Like Networking places such a strong emphasis on, you know, the positive power, you could say, of mentor-mentee dynamics and community support. I'd just love to get a sense from you, Colin, about the role that your supporters and, I suppose, mentor figures like Orla, the impact they've had on your personal and professional growth over the past few years.
Yeah, so I guess, like, if I go way back to 2012, I had applied to this competition called KFW, otherwise known as Kerry Fashion Week, which was run by Orla, and I applied not really knowing what was going to happen. But I think what did happen was that Orla had seen something in my work, and that is a long time ago, you know. I still was really only developing. I was only kind of starting to like actually get into the fashion realm, and I was still a student. But she really kind of saw something maybe I didn't know yet, and how she was able to, you know, commit to be supportive about it. It really impacted my outlook and my design process. You know, like, even fast forward even to the show that you had gone to, Orla really, she was so supportive about what I wanted to do, and she had the right people to connect me with and move that forward, so I think, to be honest, I'm sure you know yourself, the fashion industry is quite a complicated system. Sometimes it's about who you know, and it's also about timing, if that makes sense. Because I think without a mentor or a support system, you can really kind of, and maybe I've learned the hard way, you can kind of get a little lost in it, because you do need a bit of guidance. There's no doubt about that. And it's such a huge industry, and whatever way you want to take it it's kind of up to you. But also with having a mentor, they can actually guide you and be realistic about it, because you can have dreams and ambitions, but at the end of the day, you do need to live.
100%. No, I really couldn't agree more. And it is, yeah, it's exactly as you say. I think it's kind of the ideal situation in those dynamics is that, you have that little bit of the gentle steer and the guidance and kind of someone to touch base with whenever you need it. But obviously, you're, as you have been, you're kind of blazing your own trail and you're doing things in your own way and kind of learning by doing. So yeah, I think it's that balance. And I'm curious if you found yourself in a position of being on the other side of the coin of having given, even if not in like an official mentor role per se, but having given any advice to anyone who's also, making their entry into this field. Have you found yourself in that position?
Yeah, I do, to be honest. I mean, it's hugely flattering, because I feel like I'm still learning. So I can only speak from my own experience. But no, I do get quite a lot of messages, say from just graduates or maybe students that are thinking of applying to for doing, something like on off, or, even applying to do an MA. I do get quite actually a lot of messages now that I think about it. But at the end of the day, like, I always say to someone that is wanting to do something more, that to remember why they want to do it, not just for a kind of a status role, if that makes sense. I don't know, like some people might message me and they almost want me to kind of help them to get in, but you have to remember that you're kind of doing it for yourself. And maybe that kind of sounds a bit harsh and serious, but
You're absolutely right.
I think, yeah, I think that there needs to be some kind of integrity.
100%. I
if
think,
that if
oh,
that makes sense.
it makes complete sense. No, I think it's literally integral to have that sense of integrity. I think because, I mean, it's a very, like, to put it mildly, it's a very tough slog and you have to juggle so many different hats. And I know, I honestly feel like if you can stay connected to the core of why you would have started out doing this, why even all those years ago you would have been so enthused to enter
Yeah.
into it. I mean, it clearly wasn't because of some kind of false illusions of glitz and glamour. That to me was apparent from the outset. There was just a lot. It's such a buzzword now, but there was just something very authentic and very real about what it was that you were producing, and your own bringing your own experiences to the table. Or again, and this links into something that I wanted to ask you about, the role of the women in your life in terms of informing your design process. Because I suppose something that I've found amazing and also like really unsurprising is the fact that there's this sort of cohort of incredibly strong pioneering women, like in particular performers and musicians. Like, I mean, I could cite so many, but the ones that come to mind immediately would be, Mabel, Dua Lipa, Lady Gaga, who have gravitated towards I'm such a name dropper, honestly, with it, but, have gravitated towards your brand and have been donning your designs. And I think the thing that has always shone through for me, but I think particularly over the past few years or since you going over to London, have been the aspects that I find the most exciting about fashion and the potential of dress and fashion in terms of like literally fashioning identity through what you're wearing, like the uber like performativity aspects of dress, if you can even word it that way. That to me is something that just really shines through. And what also really appeals is the fact that, from season to season, your collection, the aesthetic, so to speak, of your collections doesn't sort of unrecognizably switch up or is in any way governed by kind of cyclical trends and the like. It's sort of like you've been evolving this really vibrant visual narrative, so all of these compliments are leading towards a question, I swear, though I could totally keep going. I could totally just that could just be our conversation very healthy. But I'll try and rein myself in. But I am curious to hear from you about how you want your consumers, want your clients to feel when they are sporting something that you've created.
Yeah, so I think like my idea is that the clothes are like these vehicles, and the wearer should be like transported forward. And I guess like the best feeling I want them to have is that they leave their old self behind, if that makes sense.
Totally.
Even if it's just for a second. But I don't know, I just think just from pre-COVID times when I would have done fittings with people, I say people very broadly, all types of people, that kind of magic that they kind of get a glint in their eye. And I just think I think that's the most satisfying feeling for me, that I'd like the wearer to get out of my clothes. So yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm just a bit romantic, but I like the idea that the clothes will take them forward and they leave their old self behind.
That's beautiful. Honestly, it really it's true. But honestly, that's like how transformative dress and fashion can be in that sense. And I think, as you say about leaving the old self behind, it makes me think about I can already imagine where you stand on this, but how you perceive the whole kind of concept of fashion or of clothes as, armor, as empowerment, because, with fashion research that I've, personally conducted over the past few years, I feel like I've been, like I knew that already that this was the case, but I feel like I've just been exposed to so many instances over the past century in particular of, because obviously fashion then being, thankfully we're moving forward from this, but fashion still adhering to very kind of binary gender constraints in its production. And so you'd have these male designers dressing women in a way that almost turn them into, I don't know, like passive objects to be admired, and they didn't really have a lot of kind of creative agency or creative control in the whole process. So I mean, having sort of encountered so many instances of that in research over the past year in particular, I feel like there's just something so refreshing about, even though, as I say, we're obviously moving towards genderless dress and it couldn't come any sooner. But in reference to that, there's something wonderful about a man crafting fashion that really just, like you craft it for empowering and pioneering women on different levels. And I mean, their sense of bodily autonomy or creative agency is by no means restrained by wearing your clothes. It's the opposite. It kind of propels them forward, and it's amazing. It's an incredible thing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Gush City today, honestly.
I'm not used to all these compliments. I feel like I'm getting like a bit shy or something.
Two Irish people dealing with, if it was in any way the other way around, I would leave the room. We're not well built for compliments. No, but it's sort of, it reminds, I know aesthetically, the designer I'm about to say and yourself operate, or would have operated in very different levels. But it makes me think, I know it was in many ways so often misunderstood, but you think about the likes of, Alexander McQueen, and the love that he had for the women in his life, and almost the creation of women warriors. I mean, because I am right in perceiving that, aren't I? That, you know, that it's the women in your life, or a kind of surreal I guess evolution of those role models in your life have really played a big part, haven't they?
Definitely, like I have, like in my family, I've been always surrounded by a lot of women, and definitely strong personalities too. But it's I don't know, I just felt like I was just always so inspired by them. They're very authentic, they're very themselves. And they've never changed still to this day, which is, I don't know, maybe it's their energy, and maybe I was attracted to the aura around them. And I I don't know, I can't really explain it, but there was something within that I was fascinated by. Even if it was my mom, like going out, I loved to just watch her get dressed, or, you know, like putting on this like amazing blazer. And this one picture that I love, and I always use it as a reference point, is this picture of her. I'd say it was New Year's Eve many years ago, but she's got this amazing power shoulder blazer on and just a chain, and I just love it. I just think it's such an inspiring image, and it's so real as well. It's not posed or anything. It's
Oh,
just
I
so
love
beautiful.
Oh yeah. No, I love that. I love it's so funny because when I think about my mom as well, and I think about it's so funny, like even, you know, from her kind of growing up in the 70s and 80s, and yeah, when the shoulders were so, it's so funny because like I'm really into it now, but it's almost like because she's lived through it, she's like, oh God, she'll look at photos of herself from that time, she'll be like, oh my God, my hair was so big, my shoulders were bigger, like what was going on? Whereas I'm, you know, I'm absolutely obsessed with it. And it again comes to, like, I find the whole thing of like the power kind of dressing and the dressing for success and how it became suddenly such a hype thing. No, it's that's so wonderful to hear. I have a bit of a two-part question for you.
Okay.
Bookend. It's not a complex one, but I'd love to hear from you about what sparked your decision to decamp over to London, first part, and then second part, what spurred you on to return to Kerry, to your hometown?
Yeah, so I guess when I graduated, I moved to Denmark and I worked for a designer. Now, initially, before that, the reason I did move to Denmark is because it's my second time around. I wanted to do the MA at initially Central St. Martin's, and I had gone over for the interview, but to be honest, I wasn't ready at all by any means. I didn't bring anything with me. And I remember there was all the interviews, all kind of setting up and getting everything out. And I basically kind of got told to leave, but that was fine.
Jesus
That
Christ.
was great. That was okay. So I kind of was like, do you know what? I'm going to go and work maybe as a graduate over in Denmark because I lived there and I love the culture and the lifestyle. And my boss at the time had kind of, and she had connections for the Royal College of Art. Now, at that time, I didn't know if I wanted to go to the Royal College of Art just because I had heard about it. I thought it was amazing, but I wasn't sure if I was a bit intimidated, and obviously I was knocked that I was told to get out of a room.
Of course, that's very
But
understandable.
no, it was fine. Do you know what? I really went in with a little, maybe a tiny bit of an ego, kind of thinking I was just going to waltz in, you know. But it definitely knocked me and kind of brought me back down to earth fairly quickly. Uh, so going back again to Denmark, I just kind of wanted the experience of working on a full season and working for an amazing designer. And then she was like, you know, you should really go to the Royal College of Art because there is something there and maybe you need to explore it. So then and actually I forgot to even touch down why did I move to London, because I guess I needed more time to develop. You know, I was already doing kind of shows as a student, and I kind of didn't really give myself enough time to just actually have fun. I started thinking about, you know, what needs to sell and what needs, you know, the length of the skirt needs to be this long and that long. And, you know yourself, I started thinking too business driven, and I felt like I'd kind of lost what I was doing, you know? So anyways, I keep going back and forth, so I'm so sorry if this is very confusing.
Not at all.
I sent everything over to the Royal College of Art. Like I literally sent the biggest box. Do you know like those those travel boxes that you can hang clothes in?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, I sent one of those.
Now. Yeah.
I was just like, do you know what? I'm not going to get told I need to leave again, because that was my perception. Don't forget, this is my experience with the fashion, in what I thought was the fashion scene in London. That was like, oh my God, they really are scary.
Yeah, it's all the stereotypes are true. I know.
So I sent everything over, and then I got invited over for the interview, and they really were like really excited. They were excited by what I was doing, and maybe that I had potential, you know, that maybe I didn't really know who I was, and they wanted to give me the opportunity to discover it. So that's probably why I moved to London. And then I did the course, and it was probably the most amazing, stressful, intense, incredible experience ever. You know, and I met amazing people and amazing friends. And yeah, I wouldn't trade it for the world. So yeah, that was the reason why I moved to London. But I guess moving back, I really started when I was living in London and I started showing there. I kind of London was amazing, but I started to kind of not fall out of love with it, but I kind of started to miss home. You know, I felt like I was missing a lot back home, but I felt kind of like, oh no, but I need to stay here in London to get all these experiences. And by that stage, I was doing the brand, teaching in the Royal College, but then I signed with a PR agency, so I kind of began to question. I was like, do I really need to be here to develop new ideas? Because don't get me wrong, London is an amazing place, but it's also slightly distracting. You know, it's for me anyways, you know, I like,
they can relate. Yeah, definitely.
you know, so I kind of started researching. I was like, I wonder, can I start to get my clothing and accessories and whatnot made back here? So I slowly kind of started to do it. I started to trickle on the second show. And then by that stage, I thought, I was like, oh, do you know what? For the next show, I'll see if I can actually get local craftspeople, tailors, leather bag merchant, craftspeople to try and see if I can successfully do it, you know. And then one thing led to another, and I really enjoyed this experience. Actually, you know, it was definitely a learning curve. And what I found was that, oh my God, like with today, like how lucky are we to be able to be at the click of a button or a tap, and you can kind of be anywhere in the world and still get that reach, you know. But at the other side of it, I probably don't know if I would have had the same impact if I didn't have all those experiences in London. You know what I mean?
No,
I
100%.
feel like I've run off topic.
Not at all. No, don't worry. There was a slight delay on my end. So if it seemed like I was just leaving you hanging, I swear it was my internet connection and not anything else. But no, I mean, even though I have operated in a different arena of the fashion industry altogether, I totally get what you're saying. Because I even know myself that when I was living and working over in Florence for a while, and you know, was I think I'd always
Yeah.
had this excitement to go overseas, and not because in any way I couldn't stand the sight of Dublin or anything. Like, plenty of friends of mine that have stayed here that are just absolutely just itching to get out of the country as soon as it's safe to again. I never felt
Yeah.
I never felt that sense in a big way, but I suppose I've always kind of had a link to Italy, so I've been lucky in that sense. I haven't
Yeah.
felt as kind of stuck on the island as some other friends of mine. But no, Colin, I think what you're saying makes complete sense. I mean, I think it touches on so many things that I was, you know, curious to hear more about from you, because I was wondering about whether or not these just really interesting productions and these collaborative projects that you have been doing with these producers on the ground in Kerry. I'd wondered if this was something that arose. You know, I knew that you had been back in Kerry for a time before the pandemic, but I obviously didn't know the
Yeah.
timeline. So yeah, I mean, it's so wonderful, because I mean, you know, there's such a wealth, and historically there's been such a wealth of, you know, amazing, you know, material production manufacturing in Ireland. And you know, a lot of it, you know, to the extent that it was before, cottage industries, you know, they aren't sustained in the same way that they used to be. But to me, it's just so exciting that you're partnering with, as you say, these leather bag merchants. And I mean, what's like, did you mention jewelry as well? I'm trying to think of the categories of kind of trade.
Jewelry. Yeah.
Okay, or crafts people, I should say. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a small company that I work with, and I guess like with my clothing, it's not. How do I? It's not kind of. It's a bit different to say the least. So it's kind of. I think they quite enjoy the process for themselves. It's out of the normal, out of the box ideas, and I think that they really kind of they're still using those amazing skills that they have to create something a little bit out of their comfort zone. So we're kind of all learning from each other, which is an amazing thing. You know, I think the day you stop learning or try or if you just don't want to learn, then maybe you should stop.
Absolutely. I don't think you can ever, I mean, I don't know, you know, I remember yeah, hearing that with people once and going, oh no, I mean, people, you know, younger than me, and I'm in my early 20s, and sort of going like, no, I'm gonna be like exactly the same person in 20 years
Oh,
down the line. Looking at this, I know. I don't know how, I don't know where that mindset came from. I feel, I mean, that sounds patronizing when I say I feel sorry for those people, but I can't relate to that in any way, because yeah, it like, it's
wow.
the beauty of what you're saying is that it's a learning experience on both sides. And it's honestly so exciting to hear, Colin, because it's the kind of thing that I feel when I think about even not just like, you know, innovation in materials and manufacturing in Ireland, but just, you know, cultivating Irish fashion on the ground in Ireland as a whole, while still keeping Ireland very connected to, you know, European neighbors across the pond, you know, just in an international sense. I feel like it's such an exciting blueprint of how you can really marry these, as you say, these traditional, often kind of intergenerational, you know, skill sets, and serious innovation and design. I mean, I'm sure I'm so not surprised to hear that if you rocked up with your designs, and they've probably never seen the likes of it before for their projects anyway. So oh, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I feel, to be honest with
Well,
you, I've already kind of gotten what I'm about to ask. I've kind of already gotten this sense from how you've been speaking and the like, but if you could put it into words, which ways do you feel moving back to Kerry hasn't just benefited your brand and these, you know, really interesting developments? And obviously you're chatting to me from your studio, which obviously is in I kept on thinking that you were in this is probably going to make no sense to non-Irish viewers, but you were in Tralee, but are you somewhere else?
Yeah, it's just outside Tralee. So it's literally from where you thought, maybe like a 10-minute drive, maybe
Okay.
7 minutes.
Okay. Because I don't want to offend the locals by saying Tralee. We're like, no, we're our own place altogether.
Technically, you are right. You're in the right area. It's just a little further out, but
so Southwest
we get on.
for anyone not familiar with anyone not familiar with Irish geography. But yeah, I suppose I'm curious to hear about the ways in which not just your brand development has benefited from you, you know, coming back to your hometown, but I mean your quality of life as a whole. I mean, how is it changed your life, as dramatic as that sounds?
Well, for sure, there's more space. You know, I think definitely where I am, it's really good for me. You know, I'm 5 minutes away from the beach, which is a beautiful, amazing beach. You know, I drive, you know, it's very different to how I was in London. I wasn't getting the Oyster card, you know, and taking the tube. Like it is different. And I do every now and then get this mad burst of like, oh, I'd love to go to London again, and just for a few days, you know, just I think for me, I like the kind of, I used to like when I was going back and forth at the stage where I was definitely like coming back. I quite enjoyed going over just to get this kind of a burst of newness and then coming back and taking that burst and putting it into my work. But it definitely, like the quality of life is definitely different in the sense that it's, you know, oh God, I don't want to sound like I was a poor person when I was in London, but definitely, definitely was a little bit more of a pauper. Is that the right term? When I was in London, and I wasn't living in, you know. But yeah, I feel like I should, yeah. No, I enjoyed both.
Makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be honest with you, I think this is just again the weirdness of the past year, and obviously it's a, thank Jesus, it's a temporary thing. But I think it's the beauty of bilocational living where you can. I mean, I feel like I've had so many conversations of that kind with different people. They're like, I mean, I'm sure there's different examples of designers or Irish designers, but the one that immediately comes to mind, because I was just chatting to them this morning, was Electronic Sheep, who are, you know, Brenda Ahern is in Dublin, one half of the brand, and Helen Delaney is in London, and you know, they have their own setups, but they have it's exactly as you say. It's like you can gain not just for your own life and you know quality of life, but when it comes to the kind of work that you're doing, you can get jolts of inspiration from both settings, and also kind of the stillness can definitely have, I'm sure, a positive effect too of there not always being kind of so much noise. So I mean, it is a related question to this. But do you feel like with so much of like what we're doing right now, and what I've been doing with like networking, and you kind of liaising with people over in London, even though you're based in Kerry, with so much of this digital shift, but also kind of introducing another topic, looking into how over the past few years there's been this movement of, you know, questioning this Western fashion system or hierarchy that we have, and specifically kind of the, you know, those big four fashion capitals that people would flock to, that designers trying to sort of make it, you know, to use that buzzy term, would flock to. Do you feel like there could be a waning in popularity of you know, those big four capitals for emerging designers starting out, that, or do you feel like it's, I mean, the way in which you've worked it, I suppose, has been beneficial because you were on the ground there in London for a good time, you fostered those really strong connections, and then, as you say, when you got signed with that PR agency, that was sort of the moment that you went, you know, that sort of coming home, and but still keeping those connections up. If that if that is a clearly enough worded question.
No, it makes sense. I'm sorry if I'm kind of repeating myself a little bit, but um I I do think that when I think I'm only speaking for myself, but I don't know if I can speak for others, but I think it was really important for me to be in a city like London for the brand. I don't know. I think maybe it was timing. I think maybe it was things falling into place. But I think I think it is important to be in a capital city, even if it's not for the long run, just to get the experience of it. Because then you can just always take away experiences and retreat, or if you don't live in a capital city like London, again, I'm only speaking from my experience. I think it's no harm to investigate it. I do think it is still kind of important. I don't know. I don't know now with this whole digital shift. Is it still as? No, I do. I do. I think it is. I think it is important. I'm going to say yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like I think it is that yeah, I mean, oh God, it's always the case, but I feel like people, I mean, I'm projecting how I feel and how I will feel, I imagine, I guess, but I feel like people will place even more importance when this whole global situation stabilizes on those face-to-face connections, not having to worry about erratic internet connections, or just kind of staring at screens all the time. And and I think it's sort of when you can start out and exactly as you've done, and I'm repeating myself here, but you built those connections and that the community of people that you've worked with, or who would champion your work over in London, you built those from the ground up, and you did that being there on the ground. And no, I think that is really big. I think there's nothing that can I mean, I hope there's nothing that can ever fully replace for people that yeah, that physical connection and the like. So no, I think what you're saying makes complete sense. It's certainly something I felt as well.
Yeah, I think it's like I definitely think that this whole year that it's been, I think people are really excited, and I hope there's going to be this like outburst or like Renaissance style color burst, everything burst. Everyone's going to start getting excited about, you know, creating and being creative. It is quite hard at the minute, to kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, but hopefully moving forward it will happen. I'm positive about it.
I know, I couldn't agree more. My God, even just like just hearing those words, Renaissance, color burst, I'm like, yes, literal music to my ears, honestly. Like when you're so used to like it's funny, I think also as a non-maker as well, and having just been so spoiled by just being able to waltz into town, or even say working over in Italy, just having such accessibility to, yeah, just including yourself, just these in incredible collections that designers would be crafting, when it is something that, yeah, you aren't sort of a maker by, but in a way it has made me return to more kind of practical skills, I guess, from when I was younger and the like, that involve a lot of sort of color and painting expression, because it's something that yeah, just went by the wayside, because I felt like I was getting my hit, so to speak,
Yeah.
from going into spaces or going into people's studios and just kind of feeding off of what they were doing. Speaking of, I guess, studios and what people are doing, this, obviously this video, this chat is going to go out during my takeover of the I Like Networking channel and during the opening day of London Fashion Week. And obviously there's always that buzz around the start of a new season and the digital only showcases and the like. But for me, as I've already said to you, I know it was especially relevant for me to champion the people who are not you know, sort of necessarily showing on schedule or showing at all this season, or actually doing things entirely at their own pace, and are cultivating things sort of off of that treadmill, I guess. And with all of that, I feel like your decision to which I know had a few factors, but your decision to opt out of showing this season, to, you know, be cultivating your product development, and also, you know, your very integral long-term relationship with sustainable craftsmanship and the like. It's refreshing news amidst another season of newness and the kind of the novelties that so much of us can sort of cling to. And I suppose I'd like to ask if you would have any advice that you'd give to any fellow designers or fellow makers that, you know, would similarly like to proceed at this point in time a little more slowly, or maybe even pause their practice for a little while, but are afraid of stepping off that production treadmill even for just a second, you know?
Yeah, it is a difficult decision because, you know, it's regardless of that you want to stop, it's not an easy one to say that you want to stop, but it's also not a bad decision too. So I think it was a really good decision for me because I felt for quite a while I was a little bit burnt out, as many designers might feel. And I just said, you know, with the move and setting up here, I kind of wanted to focus on getting a really nice space that I really want to feel inspired in. So I think it's no harm if you want to take a break. You know, it's only a season or two, you know, it's not the, I know you have to make ends meet. I understand. I totally get it. But it's okay to have a bit of you time, you know, there's no harm. I think for me, not participating this season in a show has been actually really good for me because it's allowed me more time to develop, as opposed to, you know, just churning out some more ideas, you know, that are already evolved from the last idea, which was already evolved from the idea before. So I think it's no harm for me. And I think it's no harm for anybody to give themselves a little bit of a break. You know, I think sometimes we're very hard on ourselves, but sometimes if you're not feeling it, it's okay to walk away, and it's okay to say no too. You know, it's be good to yourself. The world is hard enough at the minute.
I know, right? I know, it's so true. I mean, it's something that, like, one, like, not to like romanticize anything about the past 12 months. Obviously, I mean, it hasn't, no two households have had the same experience, but I think one really bizarre upside is that I've found, even with pals of mine or with people working in these sectors that I've spoken to, there's been a lot more of an openness to chat about, yeah, the importance of, you know, putting yourself first in any scenario, being is in your own well-being ahead of these things being the bottom line. And the churning out in that sense, and the burnout thing, my God, I completely get. I mean, I've really felt that
You get
last
it?
year as well. And I honestly think it's that kind of weird thing when you're someone, and you clearly are, when you're someone who's highly, you know, creatively charged and loves what they do, even though it's obviously fucking hard work as well, that I think, oh, the pandemic situation. I mean, I was joking with people that I remember when some of just the work I was doing the few months ahead of like the first lockdown here, that, you know, I was almost putting myself in um like almost like a lockdown situation for just like from back to back deadlines. And I was sort of talking to people going, oh my God, if I had known that I wouldn't have a choice in the matter, like I would have just taken a break or whatever. But it is but you know, to come back to what you were saying, no, it's so important to learn. It's funny, it can seem, some people it might seem like the simplest thing, but when you're someone who does work very hard, which you do, and you want to deliver things to the best of your ability, yeah, learning to know when to just take a beat when you need it, and also when to say no, it's huge, you know, because no one is gonna thank myself or yourself or anyone if we work ourselves to the bone and the enjoyment or the reason why we're doing what we're doing just gets lost along the way.
Yeah, it's no harm to recharge the batteries, and like, listen, life is for living too. You need to take a break. When you need to take a break, you need to take a break, and it's okay, you know.
No, amen to that, honestly. What a pull-out quote right there. Life is for living. True. It's true though. It's true. Like, honestly, I mean, I don't think anyone is exempt from needing to hear that at some point or another. On kind of a different note, this is something I just love to get your take on.
Yeah.
Because it's something that has been really occupying my mind lately. I feel like it's just been all over the shop. Like I've seen it in different channels and the like. Is this evolution of virtual fashion, of digital only collections? And it's funny, I was talking just the other day about this with Eileen Carville, who, for anyone who doesn't know her, she's the founder of this really innovative Irish fashion tech startup, Skimp, that is sort of based between Ireland and Italy. And she put up this thing about, I don't know if you've come across the term, but it's, I don't even know how to pronounce it, but I think it's wearing. It's wearing with a V, basically. I don't know whether or not it had crossed your radar at all, but I was like, okay. And basically she hadn't coined it. It was this other crowd, the Fabricant. They're this this Amsterdam based digital exclusive fashion house. And they were talking about how, no, we up until this point we've been using the same terminology to, like, I wear or wearing, to describe wearing, physical clothing versus virtual clothing. But we need something that really kind of captures this, as they put it, this like hyper state of wearing a virtual fashion item. I guess all of this is leading to me asking where you stand on virtual fashion, because I mean, on the one hand, it's obviously so ecologically viable, like it's a dream in terms of sustainability, but I just think about the tactile experiences of clothing and that embodiment, and I don't know how I'd feel about leaving that behind altogether.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be honest, like this actually the season that is that we're currently, the February schedule, it did get presented to me an idea of digitizing a new season, but to be honest, I think it's great. I think it's a great visual. I think it's a great kind of I love how people are rendering fabrics. I think it's very interesting. Visually, it's stunning. Just from me, I'm the woman that I dress. We're both very tactile people, and we do love the details. We're very kind of drawn to physical garments. I don't want to rule it out because I think it's an interesting way of working. And I know the Royal College of Art now is very digitally driven in the fashion course. So I don't want to rule it out yet. I probably would render garments as ideas. I don't know what I say. This is the final product. But then maybe, am I a bit old school and old fashioned? Maybe I am, I don't know.
Well, then I am too, though. I mean, I'm honestly with you completely. I mean, I really am. No, really, like I'm here, like, feeling my jacket at the legs, like, I don't want to lose this. But like genuinely, I feel the same as you, and that yes, visually it's spectacular. And I've been excited, given that I've been moving into kind of like alongside the writing kind of fashion curatorial practices over the past year. And I've thought the whole idea of, okay, getting really like up close and personal with an archive more than you would be allowed with artifacts in person, like that development. I'm like, okay, that's potentially interesting, that's potentially cool. But no, I am completely with you on that. I mean, I don't think anything could be no, I don't think you could use the words replacement or substitute. I feel like the physical design versus the virtual, I feel like they're just two different entities with, yes, they're both visually very interesting, but the two results are different. I mean, honestly, the thing that I've missed, I've spoken about this with so many people recently, but I mean, I feel like the sense that I've kind of missed the most, or that I didn't realize I used as much, pre-COVID times, was, touch. Like the amount of people, Colin, that I would hug in a day before
I
we
know.
started. Like I knew that I was a
I
hugger,
hear
but I did
that.
not know the level, or like even going and like going to shops or feeling the fabric, or it's just something that is just so second nature, isn't it? That you wouldn't ever think twice about these things, or my God, even just going out dancing, just going clubbing and the like. I mean, all COVID age nightmares when I think about it now, but it's you can't replace that sensory experience, Yeah. Oh, I think.
I think like probably, and to further on from what I was saying, maybe it's like my openness to digitizing clothing. Maybe it's an effective way, say, if you did a prototype of a garment and you wanted to see how it looked in maybe 10 different colors, as opposed to actually physically doing the 10 different colors. I know that like a lot of showrooms are now digital. I'm on this platform. I don't know if you heard it. It's called Jure.
Yeah, I have come across it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting kind of it's I'd say a year ago it kind of started up. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but it was kind of like a digital showroom for wholesale buyers. It's an interesting way of working. I don't know how the physical showrooms in Paris are kind of faring out. Are they doing kind of digital appointments? I don't know how it's working at the minute. Hence why I'm skipping the season. But I think like digital and digitizing clothing, I think it could be an effective way of seeing possible outcomes. But I don't want to say for me that that's the final product yet. I
No,
like the avatar things. When people are creating avatars, I think that's kind of interesting as well.
that's for sure very cool. I think, yeah, I honestly, I think what you're saying is spot on. It's sort of like it doesn't have to be one thing or the other necessarily either. It's like I think definitely, I mean, I'm sure even from a sustainability point of view, if you can have renderings of certain things or different colorways and the like, and yeah, I'm sure that would be beneficial. But yeah, I'd feel the same about that hybrid approach. There is a lot you could experiment with visually, but I mean the craftsmanship is the craftsmanship at the end of the day, and you don't want that to go anywhere. Listen, Colin, I could genuinely keep you here all day, which would be very selfish.
I know
And
we're just there like chatting
I
away.
know, just having the fans, exactly. It's lovely. But I suppose it could seem a little bit out of touch of a question, me asking you, what's next? That given that we've been talking about sort of, embracing slowness and design and practice. But I would love to get a sense from you about what things you're excited to keep evolving in your practice over this year and beyond.
Yeah, do you know what? I've started to redevelop the woman, she was like I said earlier, this idea that you're leaving your old self behind. I kind of want to take the woman now more forward again, but the idea is that I'm developing a new product, because I think at the minute I can't say it's a full collection because we're just developing the product, but it's the idea that as opposed to the clothes transporting her in the clothes, so it's kind of this idea that the woman is now in control of herself and what she wears, but the clothing also adapts to her environment. So I think the idea now is that the clothing has as opposed to it being like statementy and dramatic, it is that, but it also has this other element. And I think like yeah, I don't want to say too much yet because I don't want to kind of
Absolutely. No, I'm bold, honestly. That's already such a wonderful insight as it is. That's really, yeah, that sounds really exciting. It just sounds like it could mutate in all sorts of different directions. So that's yeah.
I'm really excited. Yeah, I
Yeah.
really am.
No, absolutely. That's so good to hear. Oh, listen, Colin, honestly, it has just been so lovely to have a chat with you face to face. I'd honestly do it again anytime.
Thank you
Literally
so
just
much.
bring me up. Literally so
Yeah,
happy.
no, honestly, you have my number.
Absolutely. No, really, again, thank you so much. Everyone, we'll
Yeah.
leave the details at the end of the video, but you can check out Colin Horgan's work in even more detail on his site, colinhorgan.com, and on Instagram at Colin Horgan. Am I right in saying that?
It is.
Yes.
Simple. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. I mean, pretty simple to nail, but I wanted to check to be sure. As I said, this will be going up by the time you're looking at this in as an extension of the takeover that I'll be doing with I Like Networking for their Instagram channel. We're also going to have a live event on the day, Friday the 19th at midday with Isabella Corazza, a very inventive dress historian, curator, and lecturer who mentored me during the first cycle of the I Like Networking mentoring program. So another excuse to hype about another lovely person. So honestly, what a lovely position this puts me in, I guess, between this chat and that one. And there'll be all sorts of other colorful content that I'll have lined up over the day. So definitely do check that out. And thank you so much for watching. Colin, thank you for being here. Have a lovely day, and I'll speak to you really soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Colin. All the best. All right. See you later. Bye.
Bye.